Grand has a new NAIA Hall of Famer in men's soccer head coach Scott Morrissey, and we'll also recap the Patty Forgy Invitational. A lot to talk about. It's Eye on the Storm, and it's coming up next. Welcome you to the September version of Eye on the Storm. I'm Randy Payton, the Sports Information Director here at the University of Rio Grande, joined as always by Athletic Director Jeff Lanham. We mentioned in the tease that we'll talk momentarily with Scott Morrissey, the men's soccer head coach. He's headed to the Hall of Fame. We just finished the Patty Forgy Invitational cross country last week. A whole bunch of stuff going on. Busy, busy, busy time.
And Randy, I think we say that every week. We talk about that. Fall is the busiest time because every team we have are doing something. Either they're preparing for their upcoming seasons. We've got seasons that are taking place right now, and so everybody's going at it. So the line center is pretty busy.
Well, speaking of busy, the guy off to my far right, Scott Morrissey, the men's soccer head coach, right in the middle of his season, obviously, and last week learning that he will become a member of the NAIA Hall of Fame, and we're happy to have him in studio today. And Coach, I guess first of all, congratulations on the honor. You joined Bevo Francis as the only folks from Rio Grande in the Hall, and pretty big deal.
Randy, thank you. Jeff, thanks also, and really appreciate the opportunity. I think, Randy, we talked about it last week. For me, it was when you reflect back on 31 years, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but there's been a lot of people instrumental in the success of the soccer program, and it starts with obviously the institution. It certainly is also reflective of the Davis family's contributions. The number of student athletes that have come through that have given 4 years of their lives to continue to play, coaching staff, starting with Tony Daniels. Tony played for me for a year, had a year off, maybe two, and then came back and started coaching. And, Tony and I really built the program from the ground up. And so a lot of people behind the scenes, as well as great student athletes that have made it possible for this award for me.
We talked before too. You mentioned all the people that have had a hand in the success, but man, all kinds of success, from national championships to runner-ups to All-Americans and all of that. You guys have had a really, really strong run.
Yeah, I think when we first started, we were taking over a program that really hadn't experienced any success. Back in the 80s, when the sport was introduced and it started at Rio Grande, we were playing in the Mid-Ohio Conference. I was actually attending Tiffin, playing against Rio, and my opportunity to start coaching here was from John Lawhorn. And I remember the day John called Tiffin University to speak to Ian Day. I was in Ian's office when the phone call came, and Ian literally handed me the phone. And it was the next day I came down, met with John and Paul Hayes, the president at the time, and then accepted the job, was back in 2 days, and started coaching.
And Scott, with that, we think about, I think I'm correct here, 18 years of straight national tournament appearances. Is that correct? Am I right in that?
I think since 2001.
Every year since 2001.
So that's, and we kind of look at that and we think that it was always like that, but it really wasn't. There was a time when you were right there, and then all of a sudden somebody would come into our place and beat us in the championship game to go, and it was just all kinds of those kind of issues.
So starting in 89, from 89 to 94, we were pretty average run-of-the-mill program. 95, we kind of turned a corner. We competed with Tiffin. Tiffin was the big dog in the conference. Wilmington College at the time was the big area team to get past. We finally got Tiffin in '96, won a conference championship. But from '96 to 2000, we would qualify for regional play, and we would lose in either the regional semifinal, and for 2 straight years we lost in a championship game to get to the national tournament. And I'll never forget the year 2000 when we lose to Roberts Wesleyan on penalties. It went to penalty kick shootout. Our goalkeeper, Oliver Sanders, who's in the Rio Hall of Fame, he saved 4 of the first 5 penalties, and we still got beat.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And I thought, at that point in time, I thought, we'll never get there. We'll never get to a national tournament. And then it was in 2001 when that run started of consecutive seasons of being unbeaten. So that's, it just, I guess they always say success takes a long time to develop, and we had to be patient with it, and it took a long time.
Has it really set in yet, the magnitude of getting into the Hall? Again, I mentioned the only other person from Rio that's in there is Bevo Francis. You're in kind of elite company. They don't hand these out every day.
Right. I mean, I've thought about it a little bit. I know there's a couple of coaches that I know that are in the Hall of Fame, and I know there's a couple of athletes that they've inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it is a tremendous honor, and it's one that, again, I look at everybody responsible for that, and there's a ton of people to thank. You know, like I said, from the administration, the players that have come through here. We've had outstanding student athletes play here. We've had guys that have had professional careers. We've had a ton of guys that are now college coaches, club coaches. Really proud of that. We've had a lot of guys that have made a massive impact on our program, and it's just not one particular person. I know I'm the recipient of the award, but we've had a lot of people that have been instrumental. The Davis family, you couldn't do what we've done without the financial support of that family in this community. They have, Evan and Elizabeth Davis have impacted lives on so many levels. High school facilities in Jackson, Oak Hill, what they've done at this institution for the University of Rio Grande. It goes without saying that, they are a major reason why we've been successful.
There was another gentleman that you mentioned when you and I talked last week when I was getting ready to write the press release, and I kind of inadvertently left him out, but talk about Bernie Curlum.
Yeah, so, and anybody probably watching this will have no idea who I'm talking about, but when I was a kid growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, Cincinnati is a heavy German-based community, and there was a young German whose family were members of a German society for men called Kolping. And basically, they played soccer, and they had a beer garden, and all these old men would play soccer and drink beer. This guy thought that it would be unique to start a club soccer team. He and two other people in Cincinnati in the 70s were the first 3 people to start club soccer. This guy did it for free. There was no charge. He trained a group of 16 boys that were in my age group, and we practiced all year round. But we also played other sports. But this guy took a group of kids and taught us from the age of 6 how to play the game. And by the time we were 14 years old, we were traveling to basically the eastern half of the United States playing soccer. And my club team won the Bush tournament. We beat Bush and we beat Scott Gallagher. Those names may not mean a thing to most people, but St. Louis was the capital of soccer in this country. And we beat those 2 clubs back when I was 14 years old. And this guy did it for free, which is unheard of in this day and age. And so his kind of tutelage and coaching was what I come to find and knew how to play the game. So I have Bernie to thank because he was responsible for my development.
You had more than you has been successful from that group of young men that you're talking about.
Yeah, so out of that group of 16 boys, in 1985, there were 9 total players of the 16 that received athletic scholarships to play college soccer in 1985 in this country, which that was also unheard of. We had guys playing Division I soccer going all over the place. I chose Tiffin as a place to go because it was an opportunity to play 2 sports.
So you played basketball, right?
Basketball.
At Tiffin.
Yes.
Well, we congratulate you on this honor, and again, it's a big honor. And I guess the only thing now is when you go to California in December to get the honor, you'd like to take your team with you.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, it would be nice if we're at the final site, round of 16. We've had a good start to the season. Nursing some injuries right now, but we'll get through it, and we'll be better for it in the end. And so hopefully the team is there too.
Scott, we appreciate you taking time out of your
Congratulations.
schedule.
Thank you for everything you guys have done for me.
All right, that's Scott Morrissey, the men's soccer head coach here at the University of Rio Grande, and headed to the NAIA Hall of Fame in December out in Irvine, California. We move on in our program, and we talked about, in addition to Coach Morrissey heading to the Hall of Fame, I guess the other big news or the big happening here on campus in terms of athletics, we completed the Patty Forgy Cross Country Invitational on Saturday rather. Keyshawn Jones from the University of Rio Grande had Rio's top finish, finishing 4th. He is in the race from Saturday. The Rio men as a team finished 4th as well. And Jeff, I know you were here, and 6 divisions, boys and girls middle school, boys and girls high school, and then of course the 2 college divisions. A lot of folks on campus. Pretty good day overall.
It was absolutely a beautiful day, and we hope for that kind of weather. And I've been at those events. Of course, this was the 49th Patty Forgy Invitational that we've hosted here, which is kind of an honor in itself to have an event go on that long. But I've been here when there's people swam in Granny's Branch down there. It's rained so much and it's been so hot, people are passing out. And it was really the temperature and all that. Ground was a little hard. We could probably use some rain, but other than that, everybody was all the way through from high school, both boys and girls high school, the boys and girls middle school, and the men and women college race were an exciting event that takes place. And we have a lot of those high schools that come for that event on Saturday because we host the district cross-country meet
next month
in October, right, in the middle of October. I believe it's October the 19th, Saturday. And so with that, they get an opportunity to run the course and just to get familiar with it. So it really is a good day.
You talk about it being the 49th Patty Forgy invite. The fact that you have close to 700 or 800 runners coming in, and there's a meet up in Lancaster, and I think another meet not too far away, maybe in Kentucky. I think that speaks volumes of how popular the meet is, the fact that there's other events that schools could go to, yet they elect to come in.
Right, and it is. I think there's a lot of respect for Coach Willie and what he's done with the cross country, what he's done with this meet itself. I mean, everybody's running now with little tags on their shoes, and it gives them the time. All they do is run across the finish line, and it automatically goes into the computer, and it's. Years ago, Patty Forgy did all of this by hand. When they came across, they got a number that they had to hang on to, that they put on a stringer, and that stringer went, then we started counting, pulling off. It took forever, and I remember that. It wasn't that long ago, but it's really a pretty neat event, and how we run it and how it's been successful, has been successful.
And I think they are in action this weekend. Is the Olive Hive this weekend? Or is that next weekend? I didn't write it down. I think it's this weekend that they head to Cedarville for.
I think it is. The last weekend of September, that would be this weekend, yes.
So there's your recap on the cross-country teams. And you ask, where's your recap of women? For whatever reason, and we never actually found out why, Rio did not have a runner on the women's side the other day.
I think we had some injuries that were involved, and they
And they don't have great numbers anyway.
They elected not to run them for fear, because we need to run those 5 girls for our conference championship. So they elected not to run them as with the heat, and again with the ground as hard as it was. They just decided it was better not to do that.
So there's again the recap from the Patty Forgey cross country invite. We move our attention to men's soccer. We were talking with head coach Scott Morrissey there a little bit ago. Right now they continue to be ranked number 2, although they lost up at Mount Vernon Nazarene last week, which might make them fall in the ratings when they come out, I think, a little later today. But they bounced back with a shutout win over Brescia. There you see Nicholas Cam Orellana from a game here at home earlier this season. They're back at home. They have 2 conference games this weekend, Midway on Thursday night, Asbury on Saturday night. And despite the fact that they lost, he mentioned they're off to a pretty good start and playing well.
They are, and their loss, they did have some sickness, had some people injured who didn't even make the trip with them up to Mount Vernon. And it wasn't like wow. I mean, Mount Vernon has always been good soccer, and they're always going to play well. Anybody, we've talked about earlier about the success that we have had, and every time we go out, it's to play Rio and to beat Rio is, that's a check mark on everybody's schedule. Everybody's highlighting when we play Rio Grande, and for Mount Vernon to be able to do that, you have to give them credit. And you look at the stats. I think even in your write-up, you talked about the stats didn't look like that we should have lost, and we shot double more shots than they had. We didn't put any in, and they put 2 in. Yep. And so
made the most of their opportunity.
That is soccer. That is really the game of soccer. You go and go and go, and just doesn't go in the goal. So.
Women's soccer, they have struggled a little bit thus far. They're 0-8 and played a pretty tough non-conference schedule. They, like the men, play Midway on Thursday night, Asbury on Saturday. I say they're 0-8, but you can see they're getting better with each and every game. And now, quite frankly, they're in the part of the schedule that counts as they get into the River States Conference.
And I just met with Tony this morning, and he talked about that. It says, you know what, we're 0-0. We are 0-0 going into the conference play. So they start their season on Thursday. And everything that they've been doing in the past is preparing them for these games within the conference. And, that's their goal. Their goal is to be there, to be there at the end, to have the opportunity to go into the conference tournament, to do some damage in the conference tournament. And, they are playing much better, and he feels
from the game down at Campbellsville last week.
Right. So, and again, they're playing Campbell. I mean, you look at their schedule, you kind of look at it and go, "What in the world was going on? What was he thinking there?" But they are better because of that. They really are. The Midway coming in here, I think, is 5-2. Their schedule, you look back, has not been as strong. And then we play Asbury on Saturday night, who's 1-7, I believe. But they've played a comparable schedule to what we have done. So just because they're 1-7 does not mean it's the same thing. And so, a lot of those teams that they have played, we have played as well. So it'll be interesting this Thursday, Friday.
We mentioned playing
Thursday,
better.
Saturday.
Mentioned playing better. They went and made a trip to Georgetown 2 or 3 weeks ago and got beat 13-1, most goals they'd ever given up in a game. They went with only 13 players, injuries and some other issues, but it seems like, and I don't know if taking a beating that bad is what got them turned in the right direction, but even though they haven't won in the 3 games since then, they've played very, very well.
Completely different, and you and I mentioned it. I can't remember who it was that they went. Goshen, they go into overtime with, and had every opportunity to score right there. And again, that was like soccer, and they kind of Goshen scores on a fluke play to begin with, and that's how they win the game. But completely different than they looked 2 weeks ago, and so it's almost like they're starting to get it. And you look too. I mean, he's got 5 or 6 brand new people who have never been out on the field before together, and so just trying to mold them all together. And I think they'll be fun to watch here towards the end of the season.
How about women's volleyball? Women's soccer has lost 8 straight. Women's volleyball has won 8 in a row. They're now 9-3 on the season. That's their first 8-game winning streak since October 4 through 18 in 2016. They are on the road this weekend at Carlow and at Point Park. If they can beat Carlow on Friday night, it'll be the program's first 9-game winning streak since September 26 through October the 8th, 1992. When a lady named Belina Cooper was the star of that team, and she's now Belina Donaldson and coaching that team.
Coaching that team, that's right. Well, they've been fun. They really have been fun to watch. And it's so fun to see them with smiles on their face and come out and be successful. And
had a couple of bad years the last couple of years.
They have, and they've just had injuries and they've had all kinds of issues that have come up. And so it's good to see that. They'll have a tough time. Anybody that goes to Pittsburgh always has a tough time up there. And it doesn't matter, Carlow, Point Park, whoever it is. They've played Point Park once already in the Cooper Invitational, and played them well. And so I expect that to be a good game. They've got to go after Carlow first on Friday night. A game that, both those teams that they've struggled with the last few years. So it'll be a good test for us. Be interested to see what it turns out with on Sunday.
Before we leave volleyball, we want to put up a picture of that young lady. That is Macy Rell, who just recently went over the 1,000 assist mark for her career.
Right.
So she is a junior out of Farmersville, Ohio, and continues to add to her mark. And she, I think after they finally decided to make her a setter and a setter only, and they did that about the midway point of last season, they've began to get a little continuity about the way they played as a team.
And in years past, when they've had success, when volleyball has had a lot of success, they've had a tall, big setter, and that's what we've got now. And so that, to me, that's been a key for them, and just that they've kind of been that person that's just been consistent and has always been there. They know she's going to be there. So it's been good. It's been fun, like I said, to watch them play.
As we move on, we turn our attention to golf, particularly women's golf. They are getting ready for the River States Conference Tournament this weekend in Florence, Indiana, and there you see Rafaela Giaffre. She has had won back-to-back Golfer of the Week honors out of the River States Conference. Did not win this week because they did not play last week. But the last 3 tournaments they have competed in as an individual, she's won. And if anybody can be on fire, she's on fire.
She is. And the idea of what, she hadn't went out and just dominated. She's in all of those tournaments. I believe she was behind going into the final day, and the last tournament was as many as 5 strokes, I believe, and tied for 5th place, something like in that neighborhood, and then came back and just shot lights out on Sunday. And Randy, she can flat out hit the ball. She also won the long drive contest up at Heidelberg as well.
Yes, she did.
She told me, she said, it was the first one I hit. She says, I just boomed at the very first one, and nobody came close after that.
The men's golf also having a measure of success as well. They're in action this weekend at Heidelberg, and then on Monday and Tuesday they'll be at Georgetown. Young man by the name of Logan Sheets. He is a senior out of nearby Bidwell, Ohio.
Right.
Shawnee State transfer. He set a singles round record for Rio, 66, 6 under par 66, and a 2-day total of 141. Those are both school records down at the Alice Lloyd tournament a couple of weeks ago. He was also a recent Golfer of the Week, and Coach Wilson's got him going on both sides.
On both sides. Yeah. He's excited about this. It's so good to hear for him to have some success, because he really struggled last year, and just he was
particularly
frustrated.
on the women's side.
Yeah, yes, it was, and he's pretty happy with that. And so it's good to see this. This is fall. The weather is a lot warmer in the fall. When we get here in the spring, we're going to be playing in rain and snow and wind, and it's like 2 different seasons. But the springtime is when we move on to national tournaments. So hopefully we can continue this going through the winter months and come back strong again in the spring.
Men's and women's bowling got their respective seasons underway this past weekend up at the Ohio Bowling Conference Tournament #1, and both finished second. On the men's side, Reese Collins was an all-tournament selection as Ryo, as we said, finished second. He finished third as an individual. And then the women, as we said, as a group finished second on their side of the competition. They will both be in action this weekend at the Cardinal Classic hosted by Ball State out in Muncie, Indiana. But good to see both of those programs off to a good strong start.
And and Coach Little and Coach Carl both. Boy, they put a lot of hours into the bowling, and it's just, what are we in our fourth year of this?
Third, I believe.
Third year of bowling, and they've created so much excitement here locally, not only here at the university, but local high schools have started bowling teams, and kind of looking at them even as feeder teams for us coming into the university. We have got a lot of outstanding people around the state that are supporting us. I don't even know if you know this, that recently we just got a new volunteer coach for us. It was the head coach at the Ohio State University.
How about that?
So he has now just joined us this past weekend as a volunteer and wants to be around the program. It feels like that Coach Little and Coach Carl are doing such a good job that he wants to be around the excitement and things that are going on there. So.
In our remaining time here, I want to give you a chance to talk about Rio Grande also recently being named a 5-star institution in terms of the NAIA's Champions of Character program, a silver medalist, if you will, for the 18-19 school year, and something that Rio has been a part of since they started the program.
Right. And when we look at the Champions of Character, this was an initiative that was brought up years ago. It mattered to the point that Dr. Dorsey, who was then our president, he was the chair of the Council of Presidents, and he was kind of the one who was involved in beginning this initiative with the NAIA. And so it's good that we were able to continue this, and well, it's a good honor for not only for our coaches, but for our student athletes as well.
Before we leave, Rio Grande lost one of its staunch supporters the other day in the passing of Gene Moore, and we want to wish our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the Moore family as Gene leaves us a couple of days ago. That is going to wrap up the September edition of Eye on the Storm. We're back at you again in October, and we invite you to tune in then. For Coach Morrissey, for Jeff Lanham, Randy Payton saying so long, and we'll see you next time on Eye on the Storm.